Okay, so today we're diving into something kind of different, something you might not expect. Yawning.
Yawning.
Yawning. You know that thing you do when you're tired or when someone else yawns? It seems kind of mundane, right?
It does seem that way.
But you sent us this information about an organization called the Great Big Yawn, CIC, and honestly, I gotta say, I'm intrigued.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they call themselves a social enterprise.
A social enterprise. That's
I
interesting.
know, right? And they're dedicated to reframing the yawn.
Okay, so how are they doing that?
Well, it's pretty fascinating. They want us to see yawning in a whole new light, not just as something we do when we're tired or bored.
Right, because usually we try to stifle a yawn, right? Like it's this embarrassing thing.
Exactly. But this organization, founded by a woman named Rachel Earing, sees it as something much more.
So what's their take on it?
Well, Earing calls the yawn a seed, something we develop in the womb, this shared experience that connects us across cultures.
Hmm, I've never thought about it like that.
Right, it's like this universal language. And get this, she even uses yawning as a conversation starter.
Wait, really? How does that even work?
I know it sounds strange, but she talks about how it can actually break down social barriers. For example, she tells a story about this businessman totally glued to his phone, like in his own world.
We've all been there.
Totally. And just by asking him about yawning, like, have you ever noticed how contagious yawning is? She was able to snap him out of it and create a moment of connection.
Wow, that's amazing. It's like the yawn acted as this social reset button.
That's a great way to put it. It's like it reminds us of our shared humanity, but it's not just about starting conversations, is it?
No, they're going way beyond that.
So what else are they doing?
Well, the Great Big Yawn CIC is all about transforming our understanding of the yawn and using it to create positive change. They believe that by reframing this simple act, we can actually unlock hope and creativity.
Okay, that's a pretty bold claim. How are they putting that belief into action?
They're doing some really cool things. They have a children's book called Dreamy's Great Big Yawn.
Oh, I love that. And what's the message behind the book?
Well, it introduces kids to the concept of yawning in this playful, imaginative way, helping them understand that even something as simple as a yawn can be a source of wonder and connection.
That's so important for kids, especially these days.
It really is. And it's not just children's books. They're using yawning in poetry, too.
Yeah.
There's this incredible poet named Jonas Opal who works with marginalized communities in Uganda.
Right.
Yeah, and he uses the yawn as a metaphor for finding your voice, for releasing what's been held back.
Wow, that's powerful. To think of yawning as this act of liberation, it's incredible how they're tapping into this universal experience.
Absolutely.
So we've always been told that yawning means we need more oxygen.
Yeah, like when you're in that stuffy room, you just need to breathe.
Exactly. But I read that it's actually more about regulating brain temperature.
That's right. It's like our brains have their own internal cooling system.
So when we yawn, we're basically giving our brains a little blast of cool air.
Precisely. And it helps them stay within that optimal temperature range for peak performance.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about contagious yawning? You know when you see someone yawn and you can't help but yawn yourself?
Ah, yes, the classic contagious yawn. It's actually a fascinating phenomenon.
So what causes it?
Well, studies have shown a strong link between contagious yawning and empathy.
Empathy. So you're saying that the more empathetic I am, the more likely I am to yawn when someone else does.
It seems that way. We tend to yawn more after seeing someone we're close to yawn, like a family member or friend. It suggests that yawning might be a way of signaling understanding and connection.
Interesting. And it's not just us humans, right? Other animals do it too.
Exactly. Especially primates, which makes you wonder about the evolutionary roots of yawning.
It's like this ancient form of communication that we've inherited.
Maybe. And speaking of connection that ties in perfectly with the Great Big Yawn CIC's mission, they're actually developing a multilingual yawn anthem.
A yawn anthem. Now that's something I've never heard of before.
It's pretty amazing when you think about it. Music has this incredible power to transcend language barriers. We all connect with music on some level.
So by creating a yawn anthem in multiple languages, they're making it accessible to people all over the world.
That's the idea. And they're including sign language, too. It's about creating this shared experience that anyone can participate in.
So it's not just about the words themselves, it's about the act of yawning together as a global community.
Exactly. And it goes beyond just listening. They're planning a whole mental health fest for 2024, and it's going to revolve around this yawn anthem.
A mental health fest centered around yawning. Tell me more.
Well, they're calling it a song-a-thon. And the goal is to get people from all over the world singing, signing, and yes, yawning along with this anthem.
It sounds like they're really trying to start a movement.
They are. They want people to embrace the yawn, to see it as this powerful force for unity and connection. And they're encouraging local communities to get involved, to learn the anthem in their own languages, and even create their own Great Big Yawn events.
It's like taking this simple everyday act and turning it into something much bigger, something that has the potential to bring people together.
Exactly. It's about harnessing the power of the yawn to create positive social change.
I love it. But with all this talk about unity and connection, I have to ask, how does this reframing of the yawn actually impact mental health? I mean, we live in a world where people are feeling increasingly isolated and disconnected.
It's a good question.
It is, isn't it?
And while we need more research to say for sure,
Of course.
there is a growing body of evidence suggesting that our social connections are crucial.
They're so important. And, you know, we hear so much about loneliness and isolation these days.
Absolutely. It's become a real issue.
It really has. And what I find so interesting about the Great Big Yawn CIC is that they're offering a new perspective.
A new way of looking at things.
Exactly. Instead of thinking of yawning as something negative.
Something we should hide.
Yes. They're saying maybe we should embrace it.
Celebrate it even.
I love that because it's true. We all yawn. It's this universal thing that connects us.
It is. It's like this unspoken language we all share.
And yet we're so quick to stifle it, especially in professional settings.
Right. Like it's unprofessional to yawn in a meeting.
Exactly. But what if, instead of seeing it as rude or a sign of boredom, we saw it as a sign that our brains are engaged?
That we're fully present in the moment.
Right. Or that we're connecting with the material or with the people around us.
It's giving ourselves permission to be human.
I love that.
Huh.
But you know, it's funny because as you're talking, I realize I'm totally guilty of stifling yawns too.
Me too. It's like we've been conditioned to do it.
We have, haven't we? It's like this ingrained social norm. But the Great Big Yawn CIC is challenging that norm.
They're saying, hey, maybe these assumptions we have about yawning aren't necessarily true.
Exactly. And maybe by questioning those assumptions, we can open ourselves up to more genuine connection.
More authentic interactions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Which brings us back to the Mental Health Fest. This idea of thousands of people around the world yawning together.
It's pretty powerful when you think about it.
It is. It's like this giant reset button reminding us that we're not alone, that we're all in this together.
And that connection, that feeling of belonging, it's so important for our well-being.
It really is. Well, this has been an incredible deep dive.
It has. I never thought we'd cover so much ground just talking about yawning.
Right. I mean, we've gone from brain science to social change to global unity.
All starting with a simple yawn.
Amazing. So to our listeners out there, we challenge you. Pay attention to your yawns this week. Notice when you do it how it makes you feel.
Don't be afraid to yawn.
Exactly.